Welcome. I can see people joining us now, so let's jump into it, considering we've got an action-packed hour. So welcome, I'm Peter Shakes, and I'm delighted to MC this very important webinar on communication in perinatal palliative care. This will be a busy hour as the team at Palliative Care Australia have recruited a wonderful panel to cover key principles for communication in palliative care and to help you apply these principles in the birthing hospital. I would like to start with acknowledging the traditional owners of the land from where I'm logging in today, the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people, or the Witchetty Grub people, whose ancestors have lived on these lands for millennia. This always was and always will be Aboriginal land. With this acknowledgement, I'll make another, that there are significant gaps in the research for understanding the experiences, needs and preferences of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in relation to prenatal diagnosis in general, and this seems to extend into the perinatal palliative care space. Building understanding how families and communities can be supported through finishing up and sorry business is vital. The topic of perinatal palliative care may bring different experiences, memories and thoughts to mind. Please check in with yourself as we progress through the webinar and pause or leave if you need to. Session is being recorded and will be available via YouTube and via the Perinatal Palliative Care Australia channel to return to at another later time. I'm excited to introduce our speakers here today, but first, who am I? I am a teaching and research academic with James Cook University, and my background is as a mental health nurse. I oversee a range of postgraduate subjects, and in one of them, we require students to explore challenging conversations. My research specifically focuses on the psychosocial aspects of prenatal diagnosis and the experiences of parents. I'm also a mother who received a prenatal diagnosis in the 3rd trimester of pregnancy. While this wasn't a confirmed life-limiting condition and wasn't treated as one, at the time there was speculation that it couldn't be ruled out until testing, which was only available after birth. That period, pre, during and post-birth, was life-changing in many ways and for many reasons. But it has led me down this path of interest in improving the experiences for parents who receive unexpected news about the health, development or genetics of their unborn baby. And with this aim, I founded and volunteer with Through the Unexpected, a health promotion charity with the vision that all people are informed, supported and empowered through the unexpected. Touching on that second word, support. There are many different ways to provide support. One powerful and, dare I say, overlooked way is through holding space for hard emotions. As clinicians, we're so proactive, we're problem solvers and we're doers. We break down complex information, we provide this information, we provide direct care, we offer reassurance, we distract, we make small talk. And in general, we want to make it better. This culture of doing and fixing can overshadow the fact that not all suffering can be relieved by words. And at times, some words can further strain parent and clinician relationships. While coming from a place of caring, words and tones can at times be intrusive or insensitive when the best approach would be compassionate silence. Holding space is a term used to refer to the practice of actively and empathetically listening and allowing others to initiate action. Holding space requires the clinician to be aware when it's not time to lead or guide. Instead, it's time to intentionally create a safe space for difficult emotions. This safety is created through the clinician's steady attention, their calming presence, empathy, and through the use of silence and soft grounding interactions. It's to let go of the agenda or the tasks and allow oneself to be directed by the parent or family, to nurture a place conducive to emotional healing through, in essence, giving and holding space for grief and the many emotions that can present with it. When holding space, a clinician communicates security and acceptance of the parent and their emotions. At a time when expectant or new parents may feel especially isolated from friends and loved ones whom they're just unable to understand the situation, or maybe fear of being judged by others for their decisions and circumstances, or even a time when the unity or conversation of the couple may be strained. The importance of this security and acceptance can't be overstated. A clinician who holds space demonstrates their competence to ground the parent through the turmoil of hard emotions, and in many cases, allows them to let down the mask. This shows parents that their whole selves are welcome. They need not be hidden, and it can promote processing and healing. This space also nurtures trust in the team and can provide the opportunity for parents to voice concerns that they have held and ask questions and simply feel heard. While there are guidelines and recommendations to allow parents time for hard emotions by providing a separate space where they can sit and process, for many of the parents, the act of being left alone in distress can be experienced as an act of abandonment. Holding space essentially works in contrast. It's the act of being present during some of that processing. It takes a skilled clinician to do the work of not fixing, not problem solving, not distracting, not jumping in to reassure, but just to be present with one's full self, holding space. Now, to introduce our speakers. Beck May is an advanced nurse consultant and acting nursing clinical director at the Women's and Children's Hospital Paediatric Palliative Care Service in South Australia. Prior to working in palliative care, Beck worked as a neonatal intensive care nurse for 10 years, where she developed an interest in perinatal and neonatal palliative care. Beck is currently developing and piloting a perinatal palliative care pathway for South Australia. We also have Dr. Freya Nicholas, is a paediatric palliative care specialist and general paediatrician working in the Paediatric Palliative Care Service based at Queensland's Children's Hospital, a statewide multidisciplinary service providing consultancy services directly to patients, primary care teams, and within the patient's local community. Dr. Deborah Gilmore is a neonatologist at the Mater Mothers Hospital Neonatal Critical Care Unit in Brisbane and is the clinical co-lead for the Cardiac and Surgical Neonatal Intensive Care Unit. She is also a clinical ethics fellow at the Centre for Children's Health Ethics and Law at Children's Health Queensland. Her clinical and research interests are palliative care and clinical ethics. Dr. Gilmore is passionate about ensuring that infants and their families have access to high quality, multidisciplinary palliative care and supporting palliative care education for healthcare professionals. We'll also hear from Tara Corder, offering important perspectives from lived experience and practical recommendations for the birthing hospital. I'll introduce Tara shortly. Let's kick off with Deb, who's going to be discussing some strategies for communication in the perinatal palliative care space.
Thanks, Peter. There are many different ways to have difficult conversations. Clinicians need to be authentic to their personal communication style while also meeting the needs of families. I find the Spikes mnemonic a useful memory aid when preparing for these difficult conversations, both in the antenatal setting and also in the neonatal intensive care unit. The key to these conversations is preparation, arranging an appropriate venue, and with privacy and comfort for all participants is important. It's also imperative that the right people are in attendance, either in person or via alternate means. And this includes both key family decision makers and their chosen support people, as well as ensuring that the number of healthcare providers who are present isn't overwhelming to them. Setup also means making sure in advance that I have all the medical information I need, including trying to anticipate questions I might be asked by families and researching the answers to these if I do not know them already. I also like to ensure I have printed information or illustrations to bring to a meeting, as well as details regarding resources or support groups in case the family would like to access these. Preparation also means knowing in advance the names and backgrounds of everyone who'll be in attendance and starting the conversation with introductions so everybody in the room knows who is present and what their role will be. This includes asking the family how they would prefer that we refer to their child. During pregnancy, one might ask, does your baby have a name or a nickname that you would like me to use to refer to them today? This is often a stepping stone to a broader conversation about the family context, and an opportunity to acknowledge their baby as an important member of that family for whom they already have hopes and dreams. After introductions, families should be invited to share their perspective. This can be with a question such as, can you tell me in your own words what's been happening during your pregnancy and why are we meeting your family today? Or something as simple as, what do you understand of what has happened to baby? It can be helpful to ensure that families are prepared to have these difficult conversations. I might follow up on asking their perspective by saying, I'm very sorry that this has been happening to you and your baby, but I am glad that we have this opportunity to meet today and talk about things more. Can we talk in more detail about the medical challenges you've been facing? As I might be meeting a family for the first time, I tend to offer them choices about how they wish to receive medical information. For example, one might say, some good families like lots of details, but other good families prefer not to go into detail at all, and other good families prefer to look at pictures. How would you like to receive information today? It can also be helpful to give families the opportunity to set their own agenda for the conversation. This can be as simple as saying, what are the things that are important to you that we speak about today? I'm going to write them down on a piece of paper so that I make sure that I cover all of them when we're speaking. It's useful to foreshadow difficult or upsetting news by signposting it. For example, with a statement such as, I'm sorry, we have difficult results to talk about today. When providing information, clinicians must avoid jargon or technical terms and euphemisms that may cause confusion. In pregnancy, it's critical that the baby is not referred to as a fetus or by other technical terms. Information also needs to be given in small, digestible chunks rather than in large quantities. As Peter's already so elegantly described, clinicians should observe the emotions of the family in response to information provided, listen and hold space for its expression or allow silence, and after time, name and reflect back upon the family's emotions. After key information has been covered and the family's agenda items have been addressed, it can be useful to check in again that the family have received all the information they need by asking, is there anything important to you that we haven't talked about today? And to reassure them that there is no right or wrong way to navigate these conversations. It can be useful to let families know this is not something that any family hopes to be discussing for their precious child. It's important that you know there's no silly questions and that nothing you say will upset me or change the way that I care for your child. If something's bothering you, it's important, and that makes it important for us to talk about it. As the conversation draws to a close, it should include a recap or a summary, details about the plans that have been made or the options that need further consideration, and a time frame for when we will meet again. Using the Spikes framework to navigate this can aid clinicians in meeting families' needs during these difficult conversations.
Thanks, Deb. Now we'll go over to Freya, who will be discussing how specialist palliative care services in children's hospices can support in the perinatal period.
Thanks, Peter. Certainly with the advances of perinatal care and diagnostic technologies, more families are seeking support with decision-making surrounding the pregnancy, the delivery, and the neonatal care of medically complex newborns diagnosed with a life-limiting condition. The perinatal palliative care refers to the coordinated strategy that comprises options for obstetric and newborn care, with focusing on maximising the quality of life and the comfort for these newborns. It involves the holistic approach to both supportive as well as end-of-life care. It's family-centred. It embraces the physical, emotional, social and spiritual elements. Triggers for a referral to a specialist paediatric palliative care service is usually initiated antenatally when the baby is diagnosed with a life-limiting condition, or it may be initiated postnatally after a newborn baby is diagnosed. Less commonly, the referral may be initiated in response to a birth of a preterm but pre-viable infant. Referral should be encouraged from regional hospitals to state-based palliative care services and not limited to tertiary neonatal centres. Specialist palliative care services provide an extra layer of support to the current treating teams. The role is of advocacy and the practical and emotional support of families. It's meticulous symptom management. It's a focus on quality of life and not just end of life. It's linking with services and community support, as well as involving bereavement support after death. Referral doesn't take away a family's hope. It enhances care. Families desire this support. They desire empathy. They desire acknowledgement of the uncertainty and the difficult situation they are faced with. This multidisciplinary support and subspecialty care help families answer their questions and they feel that they're receiving comprehensive care. Perinatal palliative care can be provided concurrently with life-prolonging or curative treatment. Some members of our community, as well as healthcare professionals, mistakenly believe that palliative care patients can't be receiving these interventions. And it's one great myth that we seek to dispel today. Perinatal care involves comfort and a spectrum from full neonatal resuscitation as well as full comfort approach. Palliative care and hospice services support birth plans. They support plans for monitoring during delivery. They support the plans for assessment of a newborn and the care taken of a newborn after delivery. This does include plans for resuscitation or PARP, but also includes the plans of how a parent's going to care for their newborn, feeding, cuddling, bathing. After delivery, babies are often reassessed, and we acknowledge that plans may change based on the antenatal examination and findings. After birth, certainly we need meticulous symptom management. We need management of pain and respiratory distress. We need not to be hesitant to provide analgesic support to our babies. We want to reassure everybody that these medicines don't hasten, but they provide relieving of distressing symptoms, and they allow for parents to have positive interactions and parent their child during this difficult time. Parallel planning is an important aspect of paediatric palliative care. Babies often surprise us. We may plan for a withdrawal of life-limiting and sustaining measures, but we also plan for the baby to continue to live longer than expected. We can help prepare families for the uncertainty of this, and as well as identify the infrastructure and support to continue to administer this care in a location of choice that the families seek to spend time with their baby in. This could be hospital, it could be a hospice, or it could be at home in their local community. The emotional impact of these diagnoses can reach further than the parents. They can reach siblings and grandparents and extended family members. Palliative care services and hospice care services can provide that emotional, spiritual, and mental health support to extended family members if needed. You don't have to be admitted to a hospice to receive these services, and we encourage families to accept referrals to hospices even if they don't intend to be admitted as a stay. Importantly, it is our role as specialist palliative care services to allow families to seek opportunities to parent, to make memories, and create a legacy. Referral assists babies to live well. Thank you.
Thanks, Freya. We will move straight to Beck, who will be looking at how we can continue the care continuum into care at home. Oh, you're just on mute, Beck.
Thank you.
So thanks, Peter, and thanks, Freya, for the lovely lead in to talking about perinatal palliative care at home. So for many families, they do have a desire to take their baby home and allow them to really integrate into that family environment. And I think during COVID, this became especially apparent when there was restrictions on visitors to the hospital. For many families and healthcare professionals, the concept of caring for a tiny baby with a life-limiting condition at home may feel really overwhelming. It could be quite daunting, and it may be something that families and healthcare professionals haven't even considered as an option. But care can certainly be provided at home with the support of a specialised paediatric palliative care service. It really does allow the families to feel empowered, supported, validated, and acknowledged as parents. How this looks and functions will vary from state to state, but the principles really are the same. Preparation and care planning is a key element when transitioning home. Babies may transition from the birthing unit, from the paediatric ward, from the neonatal intensive care department, or from the hospice environment. Often the most challenging transitions are those from the NICU, where the family have become accustomed to the high-tech technology and the hypervigilance and monitoring. In all cases, but especially those from the NICU, it's essential that the healthcare team partner with the family to empower them to believe in their ability to meet their baby's needs, to recognise that they will be able to observe, assess, and provide excellent comfort care at home. It's really about coming alongside the family and reassuring them that they've got this and they can do this. Parents, especially first-time parents, may require support with some of the general baby care like bathing, feeding, bathing, wrapping, and some of the normal developmental changes and behaviours. And at times it can be a little bit of a juggle to manage these normal baby behaviours alongside some of the symptoms of the condition. Palliative care service work really closely with the family to prepare them for all potential care needs, including the general baby care, some of the potential symptoms that they may encounter, any changes in the condition, and to ensure that the family feel really well supported. And this includes providing 24/7 on-call support for the family. Families often talk about feeling overwhelmed and isolated about being at home, especially at night time. So families really need access to additional support in the community, including community nursing teams who can provide respite shifts or pop-in visits as well. Quite often we need to be a little bit innovative in seeking our supports, because often the needs of the babies don't quite fit with the needs of paediatric or the adult population. So looking at where the supports come from that are really appropriate to the baby, like the neonatal early discharge program or the child and family health services, or really supporting the staff who are providing this support, who may not have a lot of experience of looking after tiny little babies. And as Freya mentioned, parallel planning is a really important element, and this continues in the postnatal period. There is and continues to be a lot of uncertainty around prognosis. And that's why it's important that we talk about this openly and honestly with families and prepare them that things mightn't go the way that we anticipated. Often little babies do surprise us and live much longer than is anticipated. And this is often the trigger for the decision to transition home. To me, the greatest benefit of transitioning home is allowing the parents to be parents, allowing them to bond and connect with their baby, allowing them to fulfill some of their hopes and dreams as parents and get to know their baby, their unique qualities, their personality, and unfortunately or fortunately, whose toes they've inherited. To many, the simple task of taking your baby for a walk in the pram, bathing them, reading to them on the couch as a family, or just soaking up those newborn cuddles is taken for granted. But when time is short, every moment is so precious and should be cherished. From what I've witnessed, there are so many benefits of families being at home if this is what they want. It allows the baby to integrate into the family unit, connect with the siblings and the extended family and friends, the opportunity to create memories, and to allow the family to feel comfortable in their own home environment. I've arrived at many home visits to find families picnicking in the backyard, or playing in the paddling pool with siblings, or sharing their experiences of going to the zoo, going to the beach, or spending time staring at the stars at night. Experiences that will create lasting memories for the entire family and legacies that will live on forever. As circumstances change, it's really important that we prepare families for all potential changes in condition, any signs of deterioration, and ensure the family feel well supported during end-of-life care, including what to expect, the changes they may see, how to manage symptoms, what to do, who to contact, and how to support siblings if relevant. They also require support during the post-death period, including the time frame, any changes they may see in the body, the process of saying goodbye and engaging with funeral director or religious or cultural representative, and making them aware that baby can remain at home with them for as long as they feel comfortable and as long as they desire, and this can be facilitated with the use of a cuddle cot. Care and support provided by the palliative care service continues during the post-death period and for a minimum of 2 years of bereavement support. And for those families who don't have the opportunity to take their baby home from hospital prior to their death, the PAL Care service can support with the transition home and provide that care in the community for those that this feels important for. Often the focus is on the clinical condition and practical considerations, but the psychosocial care of families is absolutely paramount. It's important to check in with the family regularly, to normalise their feelings of worry, sadness, anger, guilt, and anticipatory grief. Hold space for them, validate those really difficult feelings, and recognise that this is not a normal experience and not something that they signed up for or what they were expecting when they had a new baby. I'm often asked by families, friends, and healthcare professionals, how can we support and what we can do? And here's some practical advice that I found helpful that families have shared with me. Be there and keep checking in, even if they don't get the response or the families aren't ready for you, keep turning up. Be respectful of the family's space and time, it really is precious. Support mum, recognising that this is the postnatal period for her as well, considering the mode of delivery, how she's recovering, and lactation suppression may be relevant. Provide practical support, meals, cleaning, support for siblings, memory-making opportunities. Say and use the baby's name. Speak to the baby. Talk about the baby as a person, not just focus on the medical condition or the healthcare needs, and acknowledge the parents as parents. They are parents. They always have been parents and they always will be parents to their baby. Keep checking in post-death, as families often feel really isolated. They often have a really intense relationship with the healthcare team. And when this stops, they often share with us that they feel incredibly isolated and abandoned and alone. So for healthcare professionals, it's okay to keep checking in and keep supporting. And recognise that bereavement is a lifelong journey. It's ever-changing, and we really need to be responsive to the family's needs. There really is no greater joy than seeing a family at home with their newborn baby, in their environment, surrounded by loved ones, enjoying the special moments of just being parents and enjoying and loving their newborn baby. Thank you.
Thanks, Beck. Oh, so much practical advice in there as well from all of our speakers so far. And Tara Corder also has some words of advice. So Tara Corder is a bereaved mum and experienced beautiful support from her clinical team while they cared for her family and her daughter Emma. Seeing the value of palliative care in the perinatal period, she initiated a collaboration with the University of Canberra where she and other bereaved parents speak to midwifery students about how they can best support families navigating the loss of their child. She's living overseas now, so has recorded a video for us today. I'll let her introduce more about herself and share what parents want clinicians to know about how they interact with families through such an emotional time.
Hi everyone, my name is Tara Corder and I am a neonatal palliative care consumer. My daughter Emma died in 2011 after suffering a hypoxic brain injury during delivery. Thank you so much for having me here today. It really is a pleasure. I hope that some of the information that I share from the viewpoint of consumers will be helpful for you when you're speaking to other families in perinatal, neonatal, and paediatric palliative care and terminal diagnoses. Something really little that our neonatologist did for us every single time she would meet with us and our daughter Emma, but that made such a huge difference for us in our relationship and rapport with her, was that every time she came into the room, she acknowledged our daughter. She didn't simply speak to my husband and I about our daughter, she acknowledged her herself. She would come over to the side of the bed where she was, she would hold her hand and she would say, "Good morning, Emma." It might sound really simple, but for us, it meant the world. It meant that our doctor saw our child as what she was, a child. She wasn't a statistic, she wasn't bed 14. She was a little person who deserved care and time and respect. It made us trust her so much more, and it made us really feel that compassion and care from her. So I'd really encourage you, when you're working with families, to take the time to acknowledge that baby or child in the room, whether it's calling them by their name if they have a name, referring to them how their family does, whether they're calling them baby, daughter, son. It's really important to use your communication as effectively and caringly as you can. It's also really important, particularly in those early stages that of birth for a baby, is acknowledging the family as parents. Sometimes, especially when our child has died or is dying, it can be really hard to view yourself as a parent, because a parent has a living child, and for some of us, we don't get to experience that, or we get to experience it for a very short period of time. So it's often when we start doubting ourselves as even being parents. So perhaps you might notice dad cuddling his baby. So it might be something simple as saying, "You're such a good dad, look at the way you're holding your daughter." Or, "Look at that beautiful girl of yours. Oh, look at her fingers. She's got fingers just like her mum's." And using dad and mum, using that language, again, whilst it might seem really simple, is really powerful in the moment, and it helps families to really connect with their child, to connect with you, and to connect with their own little family that they've created. So I really encourage you to use that language. So something again that's really important is acknowledging that baby and child as a baby and a child, whether they are living, whether they have a short time to live, or whether they have died. Again, it's as simple as, if you're holding that baby or child, that you cradle them just like you would a living baby or child. The family needs to see that you're caring for their child just as if they were the most precious thing in the world, because that's what they are to that family. So making sure that they're wrapped up gently in a blanket, not placing them on sterile tables, but rather in a bassinet, a cot, a bed, or in arms. Making sure that when you are with that baby or child, they appear to be the most important thing in the world, because that's what they are to that family. Non-verbal things that can be really helpful for families, simple things such as touch. Just placing a hand on a shoulder, just having a smile, even if it means shedding a few tears. As long as you're not crying more than the family themselves, a few tears is always welcomed. This may be something that happens for you. You might be an emotional person. Something in this particular situation might bring that out in you. It's not something that you need to hide or be scared of or afraid of. Families are quite welcoming of emotion. Again, as long as you're not having to be comforted by the family, then this is always okay and welcomed. At the same time, not all of us have that. Some of us cry when we get home. Some of us have been in this place so many times that we don't have the same level of emotion brought to the surface each time we reach a family, and that's okay too. Again, as long as we're using warm and welcoming and caring ways to be with our families, then we're helping them. Unfortunately, there is no script. There is no script for this. There is no, yes, say this, yes, do that. Every family is going to be different, and what they need from you is going to be different. Asking families what they need is also a really valuable tool. What can I do to help right now? What is it that you might need? Is there something I can get for you or something I can do for you? And again, that non-verbal communication. Something that some of the nurses did for us was just to go down and get a sandwich for us, just so we didn't have to leave our daughter. It seems, again, really simple, but it means a lot. I was pumping a lot of milk, and I had one of the nurses who would come in and take the milk away for me, store it in the fridge, or wash up the equipment that I had to use for pumping. She just did this for me in her break, which was incredible, but it also meant that I could stay with my daughter and I didn't need to leave. Simple gestures, really helpful, and they mean a lot to families. Something a bereavement counsellor once shared with me, which has been really powerful and really useful for me when I've been going into the hospital or meeting with other bereaved families, is understanding that the hospital is busy. It's a busy place. There's always something going on. There's always paperwork to do. There's always lots of patients, always understaffed. There's always noises and bells. Everything is busy. Everything is fast. But grief is not. Grief is slow. So something simple like before you go into the room with a family, take a moment, put your hand on the door and take a few deep breaths just to prepare yourself to transition from that place of busyness into slow, because that's what the family needs. They don't need rushing around, they don't need hurrying. This isn't something that can be rushed through. This is something slow. Take your time and then move into their space. Slow, calm, gentle. That's what this space needs. That's what our families need. They need all the patience. They need all the care. They need everything at their pace. There's still a lot of shock involved for our families, so taking the time to just sit in that space is really valuable and important. Sometimes we find ourselves in these spaces where it's slow and quiet, that we feel like we need to fill that space. We need to fill that silence with words. I'm here to tell you that you don't. If you have words that you want to share, that's okay. Please do that. Please fill and share all of the care and those words that you have. But it's equally okay to just sit with that family, to just sit in that space, to just hold that space for them, for it to just be comfortable and okay to not know what to say, to not know what to do, and to just be there. Sometimes for the family, all they need is just to know that someone is there, and that can be really powerful and really useful. For some families, this is the very first time that they've ever encountered death. For some families, this is the first time that they've ever become parents. And there can be a lot of fear around what a baby and death actually means together. For some families, it's a question of what is okay and what is not okay. And so lots of times they'll be looking to the health professionals who are with them to find out what they should or shouldn't be doing. They're looking at that modelling. So things like, is it actually okay to hold a dead baby? Is it okay to take their photograph? Is it okay to give them a bath? Is this morbid? Is there something wrong with me if I want to do this? Is there something wrong with me if I don't want to do this? So taking some of those cues from families and modelling those things is really important. So it can be simply something as asking the family, would you like to hold your baby daughter? Would you like to give her a bath? Would you like to have a family photo? Can I help you do that? Holding the baby, asking the family, would you like to dress your child? Maybe we could find a special outfit for them that you would like. And giving them some choices, because a lot of times choice is taken away. but also allowing them time to be able to bond with their baby and their child and know that these things are okay. They are okay. I just want to really leave you on this note. Please know that you can do this. You've come into this profession, whether it is as a midwife, a nurse, an allied health professional, a doctor, a social worker. You've come into this profession because you care. Sometimes you may not be always prepared in this profession to face death and dying, but all of those beautiful, incredible qualities that drew you to this profession, this is why you're here. Use your heart, use your care, use your relationship skills, use your rapport, and speak to those families the way that you would speak to and share with any other family. You can do this, and we really appreciate you being there for us. The health professionals and nurses, allied health, that I have had the pleasure of being with me along this journey with my daughter Emma have meant so much to me. They've made such a huge difference. And I really, really encourage you to trust within yourself that you can do this, to hold this space, and to know that what you say, what you do, and simply being there really does make a beautiful and wonderful impact for families. Unfortunately, we can't save all babies, we can't save all children. They do die. That is the reality of life, as hard as it is. But just taking that time to be there for a family can make the world of difference to that family, and it really is worth your time. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Wow. It's hard to follow that, really, to be honest. So I'll lead, I guess, straight into some of the questions. There is a Q&A spot down the bottom if people have questions or thoughts to share. I am going to be processing all of our little 5-7 minutes chats from everyone, presentations. There's just so much to take on board, and so many points to really sit with. So I'll pop over to one of the questions that's come in. If a birth hospital doesn't have an existing relationship with a perinatal palliative care service, how do they find them? How do they link with them?
That's a really good question. Sorry to answer. So most states are state-based palliative care services, and most have a direct contact number that health professionals can just pick up the phone and make that initial contact. So I'll speak for Queensland. So as the Queensland Children's Hospital state-based service, so we have a number that's on a website, on the hospital website, and any health care professional can just ring up and get directly through to our service, and we'll be able to direct and support from there ongoing.
Thank you. And are there any babies who perinatal palliative care is not an appropriate approach for?
Thanks for asking that question, Peter. I think it's really important to talk about this because sometimes health professionals have an overwhelming sense of paternalism where they want to avoid harm to their patients, and so they might not refer a patient to palliative care because they think that it's an inappropriate referral, or they might not want to have that difficult conversation. But in short, no. For any family who has an unexpected news in their pregnancy or has an infant who ends up in a special care nursery or an intensive care nursery, that family is processing grief or a loss of some component of their expected pregnancy care or their birthing plan or the time that they had envisaged with their child after birth. And an integrative palliative care approach is using a family-centred and child-focused care approach to ensure that children and their families live the best possible lives, no matter how short or long that life might be. And if some children who don't end up having life-limiting or life-threatening illnesses benefit from that and their families benefit from it, the worst that will happen will be that they'll have been provided with excellent, all-encompassing care to the community that surrounds them. And so from my perspective, I really don't think having these conversations with families about what their goals and their hopes and their dreams for their child are is a thing that can cause unnecessary harm when so many families are facing difficult situations in pregnancy, birth, and the time afterwards.
Thanks for that, Deb. I guess it ties on with that as well. One of the questions we received, that if there is a baby who has, I guess, continued to live, or the prognosis might have had a lot of uncertainty, what happens down the line, and how do they transition, and what kind of care comes after that?
Obviously, for a palliative care service, there's no greater thing than transitioning a family. That's wonderful for the families, but it's also wonderful for us. And as I mentioned in my talk, families can often feel isolated. They've built a really strong rapport and connection. There's often been really regular check-ins. And whether that's because the baby or the child's then died or that they've transitioned, families experience a sense of loss, and they need to be prepared for that and supported through that transition. It's not like you're with us and now you're not. It's a gradual process of linking in with other supports, thinking about who's best placed to support the child and the family ongoing. So that might be paediatricians, that might be a complex care service, it could be community care providers. So making sure that the family is really well linked with ongoing supports, and that there is a gradual transition process, that they're very aware of the rationale for transitioning as well. And that they know that if circumstances ever change, that the doors are always open and they can always come back into the service.
Thanks, Beck. We've got a question from someone who works in a remote location and who had wondered the things that we've been talking about today. Is it applied in the culturally diverse context? What do we need to consider in that context? Can anyone speak to that?
I'm happy to start, but I suspect Beck and Freya will have perspectives on this as well. I think particularly in conversations, but also in care, it's really important that conversations occur in the language that families are thinking in, and that we utilise our colleagues from interpreting services so families don't have an overlay of additional stress. It's really important that these conversations happen in a culturally safe way. And so in Australia, that might mean working with elders or cultural leaders or liaison peoples from the family's own cultural, community or spiritual background to help support them and navigate through decision-making or care that's being provided. Or in the New Zealand context, with looking at encouraging the whānau to be involved. And apologies for my terrible pronunciation. And all of those things come with a great responsibility to healthcare providers to ensure that we have knowledge around what is culturally safe care, and that we ensure we have the appropriate people in the room to be providing that culturally safe care and not causing additional harm through not having the right people there.
And in terms of caring for babies, not within the metropolitan area, but more remotely and out in the community, yes, it's definitely possible. Across Australia, there's specialist palliative care services that can support families. And one of our main jobs as well is supporting the healthcare team providing that care. And if it's really important for the family to be home on country and on their land, then we can certainly support that transition. Really, the main way of knowing that is being curious and asking the family, finding out from them what is really important. Don't come in making assumptions or thinking that we know, because we don't. So the best way of doing that is being curious and asking and finding out and seeking that support and bringing in the support that's important to the family, and then navigating the steps to prepare home to be a safe and is comfortable for the family, ensuring that we're meeting everyone's needs, not only the physical, the psychosocial, but their cultural and spiritual needs as well.
I might just add to that, certainly part of the value that we bring is that we often have time to sit with families for extended time, and we set aside, rather than, often the acute teams might have a number of patients who are very unwell that they need to address, and we'll often set aside an extended period of time, and we do it in an interdisciplinary way. So we'll often involve allied health, nursing and medical in our consults. So we're really getting to know the family and them as part of their culture, and so that we can sort of address all of those needs. Part of the model of care that we run in, certainly in Queensland, is that we'll often help with what's called a pop-up. So we, as a palliative care service, will actually fly up or drive, depending on we're a big state. So we'll actually attend the local community services and provide education and support in order to help assist them to care for these families and babies in their own communities.
Amazing, so important. Yeah, it's such. Thank you. I'm going to have to take a while to process all of this information, so I'll just keep reading the questions because the good answers come from these ones. So the concept of palliative care has been presented to a family in a way where where it was unsupported, they were unsupported, or it was unsupportive, and they've declined the referral. How should clinicians revisit the topic or the subject?
Sometimes it can be simply about using different words. Words are powerful, and it might be that there needs to be a reframe. There can be misconceptions about what palliative care means and that it's about purely the process of dying. And sometimes there needs to be a gentle conversation that actually palliative care is about living the best possible life in the context of your broader family and community, and that they're an amazing team who are incredibly creative, whose entire role is about helping children and their families to live the best possible lives they can live. And also that they have amazing skills in navigating difficult situations and trying to make them better. Many families, when you talk about what the team might bring to the situation in terms of support or practical things they can add, are much more open. And sometimes the greatest barrier is actually the healthcare providers and the language that healthcare providers have used rather than the families themselves.
Yeah, I'd absolutely agree. And it's quite interesting that we're seeing more families actually seek out palliative care and a referral to palliative care. I think thanks to webinars like this, there's a lot more awareness out in society now around paediatric palliative care, what it is, what it encompasses, and how it differs a lot from the adult palliative care model as well. So often one of the greatest barriers, I would say, is actually the comfort of the healthcare professionals, more so than the family.
Okay, we'll just wind up with one last question. So what advice would you give to a clinician who's thinking about specialising in this area?
I might start, and obviously we're all very much involved, and I think it's being curious, and there's often opportunities to come and work through sort of pepper placements and gain some experience, whether you're allied health, whether you're nursing, and certainly there's opportunities for those who are training to rotate through the palliative care service and to gain sort of experience and further seek training if they're sort of medical and interested in such. But I think, certainly in paediatric health is that we're all providing family-centred holistic care. So, very much we're really all thinking about the aspects of palliative care, even if you're not a palliative care specialist, because we're doing holistic family-centred care. So I think we all have an interest in it, and if you're interested in training, there's opportunities to gain experience and certainly talk to those that are sort of directly working as well, linkages.
I guess just to say that this role is an incredible privilege. We get to walk alongside families over a long period of time. We get to work very collaboratively as part of the multidisciplinary team. Our work's in the hospital, it's in the community. I think, there really is no other role that gets such diversity and such opportunities and really get it to partner in care with families and truly do that. It's an absolute privilege.
I think just to add one last thing is that, to quote Palliative Care Australia, death is everybody's business. And no matter what your role is in the community, what your life experience is, we all encounter death in some way or another during our lives. And so having these conversations don't just have to happen in a healthcare environment. You can be supporting a friend who's had a stillbirth or speaking with families who have a child with a life-limiting condition outside of the healthcare environment. It's something that you can do anywhere.
Thank you to the audience for participating, for being here, for hearing this out. Thank you to our speakers who shared so much wisdom. Thank you as well to Tara, who shared, part of her story and Emma's story. There's been a lot to process and all the thank you messages are coming through as well. And I'm sitting here being just as grateful for everything that everyone has shared. So many things have been discussed today and things do have the potential to surface some difficult emotions. So we encourage you to take a moment now to replenish the cup. If this webinar has stirred some difficult thoughts, remember, even as a health professional, support is available. This includes some of the profession-based helplines or peer support organisations or support in your workplace. I'll just leave it quickly with a few exciting developments. So through the unexpected and the many collaborating organisations, including Palliative Care Australia, are developing online module-based training about the psychosocial aspects of prenatal diagnosis. And while parents who receive a prenatal diagnosis of a life-limiting condition are only one portion of all of those families that do access perinatal palliative care, the modules will explore a range of topics from communication, psychosocial support, supporting colleagues, and of course, perinatal palliative care. We hope to launch by the end of the year and are currently just finishing up some of the research to fill some of the knowledge gaps, including an exciting co-design case scenario project that we're doing with people with lived experience. And as part of the Paediatric Palliative Care National Action Plan project, Palliative Care Australia will be releasing an education module on communication in paediatric palliative care, which may be of interest of some of the participants, maybe even myself here. And they're also launching an updated version of what's affectionately called the Green Book, a practical guide to palliative care in paediatrics, which includes guidance on perinatal palliative care as well. So if you sign up to the newsletter via the Paediatric Palliative Care website, you'll be up to date when those are released. So thank you again for being here today, for the hard conversations and the hard emotions, and the joy that's still in there as well. It was really great to hear of some of the joy and the hope that can still be there in all of the complexity of perinatal palliative care. Thank you for your effort and the support you provide to families through applying palliative care communication principles in the birthing hospital.